Well, good day, and welcome to another FAIR podcast. I'm Dan Stein, president of the Federation for American Immigration Reform, and I am happy to be here today because today we're going to do something very special and a little bit different. You know, I've been working on this issue for close to 40 years. I've been around a little bit, and I can tell you right now that my perspective on this issue, while important, is not necessarily the same as the perspective of younger people today. And for the immigration reform movement, all of us agree we need more voices, we need younger voices, and we need different perspectives. And FAIR is inaugurating a podcast with a younger crowd, targeted to younger crowds. And I want to talk a little bit about the principles involved. It's called Mornings with Matt, and it's anchored by Matt Tragesser, who's going to be your host. And he's going to be joined periodically by Julia Post, who's also part of FAIR's team. She's on our development staff. And he will have guests that will also be joining the two of them as they talk about immigration policy. So thanks for joining me. It's Matt Tragesser and Julia Post. Matt, what makes this podcast special?
Well, Dan, there's definitely a lot of elements that make this podcast special. I mean, you know, we have two people who are young in the movement. I mean, Julia and I here are both recent college graduates. We're younger in age. And it seems like a lot of the people that are involved in this issue or want border security or take our side, they tend to be older, and we're trying to appeal to that demographic still. We want to get people that are younger involved, and I think this is a perfect way for people to listen and to understand more of the issue at hand.
And your family has some of an immigration story background too, right?
Yep, that's correct. So my mom is actually an immigrant from Guatemala. And
Okay.
She immigrated here when she was 17 years old, legally, of course. And so seeing her story and seeing what she had to go through to come here definitely motivated me to be part of this movement and join FAIR. There are a lot of other Hispanics out there who take the same stance as me and the organization.
Okay, and Julia, why do you think young people need to be addressed differently, and how do young people learn about this issue?
Well, I think working in development, I've been working with reaching out to a lot of our older donors and explaining to them how FAIR was founded. And in doing so, learning the story better for myself, I see that a lot of the founders who came into the movement in 1979 had reasons that aren't necessarily the same reasons that someone might come into it today. So I thought that it's important at this stage in FAIR's development to reiterate our reasons for having an immigration movement in the first place. I came to FAIR 2 or 3 years ago as an intern, and I didn't know much about immigration, but I've been able to learn firsthand here the reasons that I think immigration reform and immigration controls are important. But I don't think enough of that perspective gets out in the media streams that we have today for young people.
You found it was pretty much shut down when you were in college.
Yeah, well, when I went to college, I really didn't care much about immigration or politics or anything. I went to American University in D.C., and I was really more on the left-leaning side of immigration. I had a Spanish teacher in high school who talked to us about all the different South American countries you could visit and how the people want to come here for a better life, and it all sounded pretty straightforward to me. You want to immigrate here, that's fine. But then it was 2015, so that was when there were a lot of terrorist concerns. And actually, there's one story which really stands out in my experience. I was at a policy discussion with the French ambassador to the United States, and he was talking about immigration and the migrant crisis that was taking place in Europe at the time. And he was saying it wasn't a crisis, it was just propaganda and going on. And I pretty much believed him. And then I was walking back, and I walked into my dorm, and my roommate was a French exchange student. And I walked in, and she was in tears, and it turned out that the Bataclan attacks were happening as we were speaking, and she had an uncle who was there who did end up dying. And when I saw firsthand, first of all, just the event that transpired, but then immediately how she covered it up. It wasn't about immigration. It wasn't about immigration, and she just didn't even want to talk about the issue. That was when I started questioning, well, what's really going on here? What's going on in Europe? And I started looking into the issue myself, and that's when I realized that walls pretty much went up everywhere that I tried to look for information. And it wasn't until I got to FAIR that I was able to hear the other side.
What fired your passions on the issue, Matthew?
Well, Dan, as I mentioned before, my mom's immigration story from Guatemala definitely motivated me, but as with Julia, I also attended a very left-leaning university, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I definitely enjoyed my experience there. It's a great school. I love Madison as a city, but it was almost as if there was an indoctrination type of
No, I can't believe it.
Well, yeah, you better believe it. But the thing was, you talk about border security, wanting immigration enforcement, even supporting the president, and in a lot of these political science classes, you couldn't really convey your opinion, or else you'd be shut down, or you get kind of name called a racist, xenophobe, bigot, terms like that. And so I think that almost made me more passionate about the issue, because I was one of very few on campus who supported that mission. And I don't know, today it's just fired me up. I want to prove to people at my age that doesn't make you a racist for wanting to control your borders, to establish your sovereignty. It should be an issue that everyone that's a citizen of the U.S. should support for.
Okay, and what are you going to be looking for in the way of guests? What makes a good guest for you?
Yeah, I want a wide range of guests. I want policy experts, people that have actually worked at the border patrol agents. I know with the Center for Immigration Studies, Numbers USA, they have a lot of staff that obviously work in conjunction with us. So just a wide variety of guests that can comment on the topic of immigration. And, I want to invite as many different perspectives as possible throughout this podcast.
And are there areas you'd like to see discussed, Julia?
I would like to talk to other people who aren't necessarily policy experts at all, but maybe people that are curious about the issue and are younger, more our age, and see what they think, get their perspectives, and talk about it. Because I think a lot of people are scared off from it without ever really exploring it. And if you want to get to the bottom of it, you have to find out, why are people scared off by the issue? What are their objections to it? And then maybe talk through it a little bit. I think it would help people to know more about our experiences too, learning about the issue and growing in the movement, because that shows people that it's not really this big boogeyman issue, but really something that we can all relate on in one way or another.
Yeah, I think sharing your understanding is very important, particularly for younger people to understand what you haven't been allowed to really be exposed to, and consider alternative ideas and points of view about this issue that really need to be discussed. You're going to have topical issues in terms of legislation, what's on the Hill, and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. I know internally we have a fantastic government relations department, and they're always up on Capitol Hill, as you know, that can offer great insight. But, even potentially reaching out and getting members of Congress, or maybe some of their staff members, that'd certainly be beneficial, and getting more of an insider perspective of what's going on the Hill would be certainly beneficial to the podcast.
And what do you guys like about working together on this?
Well, I think that the best part is the age factor. Julie and I, like I mentioned before, we're recent college graduates, and I think that both of us are one of a few people who are our age that are taking a stance on this issue. And I think hopefully our listeners out there can resonate with us and see that it's not just an old person issue. It's not just a liberal issue. It's
old cranky like me.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of potential with this, and hopefully we get a big following from people that are our own age who are interested in podcasts and politics.
And I think we're young enough that we really don't know everything that there is to know. We haven't been in this for 40 years like you, and that gives us an opportunity to work through these things together, and talk it out for other people to weigh in as well. So we're still learning too. It's important.
Well, great. Well, coming soon to you, Mornings with Matt Tragesser and Julia Post will be joining you from time to time with great new content, new news, information you want to keep up with. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to listening to what you guys do.
Thank you.
Thanks.